Have you ever wondered what it would be like to be a human guinea pig? Throughout history, scientists have conducted some truly mind-blowing experiments on human subjects, all in the name of progress. But were these experiments ethical? And more importantly, did they actually teach us anything valuable? Some of these experiments might make you squirm, others might leave you scratching your head in disbelief. But one thing's for sure, by the end of this video, you'll have a whole new appreciation for the weird and wonderful world of scientific discovery. Hey, history lovers! This is James, and welcome to the Flair Chronicles channel. Today, we're diving into the annals of science to uncover the top 6 crazy scientific experiments on humans you won't believe. Trust me, some of these will have you questioning reality itself, and this might be new to you as it's the first time you'll hear about these scientific experiments. But before we jump in, make sure to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell icon so you never miss out on the latest and greatest in bizarre scientific discoveries and more. All right, let's get into it. The Stanford Prison Experiment, 1971. Let's start with one of the most infamous psychological experiments of all time, the Stanford Prison Experiment. Conducted by Dr. Philip Zimbardo at Stanford University in August 1971, this study aimed to investigate the psychological effects of perceived power by assigning volunteers to the roles of prisoners and guards in a mock prison. What began as a simple role-playing exercise quickly spiraled out of control. Within hours, the guards embraced their authority, imposing strict rules and harsh punishments. The prisoners, stripped of their identities, began to show signs of severe stress and emotional breakdowns. By the second day, the situation escalated dramatically, with some prisoners experiencing nervous breakdowns and others becoming increasingly helpless and degraded. Despite the growing distress, Dr. Zimbardo, engrossed in his role as the prison superintendent, initially failed to intervene. It took an outsider, graduate student, Christina Masloch, to highlight the ethical concerns and psychological harm being inflicted. Her intervention prompted Zimbardo to terminate the study after just 6 days, though it was originally planned to last 2 weeks. The Stanford Prison Experiment revealed how quickly ordinary people could be influenced by their roles and environments, raising profound questions about authority, conformity, and human behavior. Despite its ethical shortcomings and methodological flaws, it remains a pivotal study in understanding the complexities of human nature, demonstrating the potential for ordinary individuals to engage in acts of cruelty when placed in positions of power. The Aversion Therapy Experiments, 1930s to 1970s. The aversion therapy experiments, spanning from the 1930s to the 1970s, represent one of the darker chapters in psychological research. These experiments aim to cure undesirable behaviors, particularly homosexuality, which was wrongly considered a mental disorder at the time. Individuals subjected to aversion therapy underwent electroshock treatments, chemical injections, and other painful stimuli while being exposed to images or thoughts related to their sexual orientation. Conducted in various parts of the world, these experiments were driven by a misguided belief that such methods could treat homosexuality. Participants often experienced severe psychological trauma, with the inflicted pain and humiliation leaving lasting emotional scars. The use of such extreme measures not only lacked scientific validity, but also grossly violated the rights and dignity of the individuals involved. The consequences of these experiments were devastating. Many subjects suffered long-term mental health issues, including anxiety, depression, and post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD. The failure of aversion therapy to produce any positive results further highlighted its ethical and scientific shortcomings. As awareness grew, the psychological community began to recognize the profound harm these practices caused, leading to widespread condemnation. Today, aversion therapy is widely discredited and considered unethical. The medical community now acknowledges that homosexuality is not a disorder and embraces a more compassionate and scientifically grounded approach to understanding sexual orientation. The history of aversion therapy serves as a poignant reminder of the importance of ethical standards in psychological research and the need to respect human dignity in all scientific endeavors. The Monster Study, 1939. In 1939, Wendell Johnson and his team at the University of Iowa conducted a controversial experiment on 22 orphan children to study the effects of positive and negative speech therapy. Known as the monster study, it involved labeling some children as normal speakers and others as stutterers, regardless of their actual speech abilities. This experiment sought to understand the impact of these labels on the children's speech development. Children labeled as stutterers were subjected to negative reinforcement and constant criticism, even if they had no initial speech issues. This group faced relentless pressure and negative feedback about their speech, leading to significant psychological distress. Over time, many of these children developed speech problems and long-lasting emotional scars, demonstrating the severe consequences of negative psychological interventions. The monster study revealed the profound impact of psychological labeling, showing how easily negative reinforcement could harm an individual's mental and emotional well-being. The children who were incorrectly labeled as stutterers experienced anxiety, decreased self-esteem, and in some cases, lifelong speech impediments. The study's ethical implications are still debated today, as it starkly illustrated the potential harm of unethical research practices on vulnerable populations. This experiment underscores the critical need for ethical standards in psychological research. The long-term psychological damage inflicted on the children in the monster study serves as a sobering reminder of the responsibility researchers have to protect their subjects. Today, this study is often cited as an example of what can go wrong when ethical considerations are ignored in the pursuit of scientific knowledge. The sleep deprivation experiments. Sleep deprivation experiments have been conducted by numerous researchers over the years to understand the effects of lack of sleep on the human body and mind. One of the most notable studies was conducted by Dr. William Dement in the 1950s, where volunteers were kept awake for extended periods, sometimes up to 11 days. This groundbreaking research aimed to explore the boundaries of human endurance and the critical role of sleep in maintaining cognitive and physical functions. The results were alarming, revealing severe cognitive and psychological impairments among the sleep-deprived volunteers. Participants experienced hallucinations, memory loss, and extreme mood swings, demonstrating the profound impact that lack of sleep can have on the brain. These findings highlighted how essential sleep is for mental health, affecting everything from basic cognitive functions to emotional stability. In addition to cognitive and psychological effects, prolonged sleep deprivation also led to physical health issues. Volunteers showed signs of weakened immune systems, decreased motor skills, and an overall decline in physical well-being. These comprehensive results provided crucial insights into the multifaceted role of sleep in maintaining overall health and emphasized the dangers of chronic sleep deprivation. The sleep deprivation experiments, particularly those by Dr. Dement, significantly shaped our understanding of sleep disorders and their treatments. They underscored the necessity of sleep for holistic health and paved the way for further research into sleep-related conditions such as insomnia and sleep apnea. Today, these studies continue to inform medical and psychological practices, stressing the importance of adequate sleep for a healthy mind and body. The MKUltra Experiments, 1950s to 1970s. MKUltra, a covert CIA program initiated in the 1950s, aimed to develop mind control techniques through the use of drugs, hypnosis, and other experimental methods. The experiments were conducted on unwitting American and Canadian citizens, often involving the administration of LSD and other psychoactive substances without the subject's knowledge or consent. This program sought to explore the potential of these substances to manipulate and control human behavior. The effects of the MKUltra experiments were devastating. Many subjects suffered severe psychological trauma, with some developing long-term mental illnesses as a result of their participation. The lack of informed consent and the clandestine nature of these experiments exacerbated the ethical violations. In some extreme cases, the experiments led to the death of participants, underscoring the dangerous and unethical practices employed by the program. The exposure of MKUltra in the 1970s sparked a significant public outcry and led to widespread condemnation. The revelations highlighted the extensive ethical breaches and the severe consequences faced by the unwitting subjects. This scandal prompted a reevaluation of research practices and contributed to the establishment of stricter ethical guidelines and oversight mechanisms in both governmental and scientific research. The MKUltra program's legacy had a lasting impact on research ethics and government oversight in the United States. It underscored the critical importance of informed consent, the protection of human subjects, and the need for transparency in research. The ethical breaches of MKUltra served as a stark reminder of the potential for abuse in the pursuit of scientific and governmental objectives, leading to reforms that continue to shape ethical standards in research today. The human radiation experiments, 1940s to 1970s. During the Cold War, the United States conducted numerous human radiation experiments to study the effects of radiation exposure. These experiments, driven by a desire to understand the potential impacts of radiation on human health and its applications in warfare and medicine, often involved injecting unwitting patients with radioactive substances. Disturbingly, these experiments were conducted without the knowledge or consent of the subjects, violating fundamental ethical principles. The subjects of these experiments were diverse and included hospital patients, pregnant women, and even children. Many of these individuals were chosen because they were seen as vulnerable or expendable, such as those with terminal illnesses or marginalized communities. The lack of informed consent meant that these individuals were unaware of the risks they were being exposed to, and they had no opportunity to refuse participation. This unethical approach highlighted a blatant disregard for the autonomy and rights of the participants. The long-term effects of radiation exposure on these subjects were devastating. Many developed cancers, leukemia, and other serious health issues directly linked to the radioactive substances they were exposed to. The psychological impact was also significant, as those who later learned of their involvement struggled with feelings of betrayal and fear. The suffering endured by these individuals underscored the severe consequences of unethical medical practices. The eventual revelation of these experiments in the 1970s prompted widespread outrage and condemnation. The exposure of such gross violations of medical ethics led to significant reforms in human subject research regulations. These reforms emphasize the necessity of informed consent, the protection of vulnerable populations, and the establishment of oversight committees to ensure ethical standards are upheld. The human radiation experiments serve as a sobering reminder of the critical importance of ethics in medical research, influencing policies and practices to prevent such abuses in the future. As we've seen, the history of scientific experiments on humans is filled with stories that are both shocking and thought-provoking. From the psychological impacts of the Stanford Prison Experiment to the ethical violations of MKUltra and the human radiation experiments, these cases highlight the importance of ethical standards in research. But these stories also raise an important question. How far should science go in the pursuit of knowledge? At what point do we draw the line between scientific advancement and human rights? We'd love to hear your thoughts on this. Leave a comment below and join the conversation. If you found this video insightful, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends. And for more intriguing stories and deep dives into the world of science, make sure to subscribe to our channel and hit that notification bell so you never miss an update. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.